good evening and welcome to your very own BYJU'S 9th and 10th grade channel. I'm your teacher Aishwarya and I welcome you to Exam Ed series, which is going to be your ultimate half-yearly test prep partner. And in our class today, we will kickstart the chapter for biology, one of the most important chapters, which is going to be fundamental unit of life. And today we have a long class ahead of us because we are going to be doing important concepts. We will be doing 15 question answers as well. So very quickly, students, I hope all of you are excited, and very quickly, as this is a live class to all my live audience, I hope that I'm audible, I'm visible, whatever I'm writing on the screen is visible to all of you. Yes? Good evening, everybody. Good evening. Hi, Harsimran, Drishti, Anupama, Neha, Abhimanyu, Arush, Astha, Ulma, Gungun, Avni. Good evening, all of you. I can see that a lot of you are very regular to my class. Many of you I'm seeing after a very long time. So I hope all of you are excited. Good evening, everybody. Good evening. See, today time is of utmost importance because today our particular class is going to be for 2 hours, right? So what are we going to expect today? Today, first and foremost, we are going to be doing a full chapter revision. And as you all know, full chapter revision means this chapter in itself is already very big. And we need to revise the whole chapter. And along with this, I'll be telling you a lot of the exam relevant important topics, right? So I will tell you which are all exam relevant in the sense that from which all topics will you get short questions. And after we cover these two, we will have to look at important questions, right? So in 2 hours, we need to use our time wisely. Yes, 2 hours we need to use it wisely. We cannot waste our time, right? Which is why, what do you need to do for today's class? First and foremost, please make sure that you have your notebooks and your textbooks open with you. Yes, very, very important, right? Next, of course, please make it a point that all of you here have your stationery, pen, pencil, sharpener, eraser, whatever is it that you need. Please go get it and come, right? Don't waste your time in mid-session saying, "Arey ma'am, I went here, I went there, I had to do this," right? So please make sure you don't do that. Hello, Team 7 guy. Hello. Then, water bottle. As much as water is important for me, water is important for you also, right? And last but not the least, keep yourself in a quiet place, right? Please make sure that keep it be in a quiet place where you can study and focus. Because let me tell you one thing, right? Very simple and easy. First and foremost, today my guarantee to you is that if you dedicate 2 hours of your time and focus, I'm not just telling sit in class, but you also need to pay attention in class, right? If you dedicate your time and focus, trust me that this particular chapter, you will be 100% clear for your half-yearly exam. You will ace it. That is my guarantee to you, right? But if you are not paying attention in class, you have slept in between, you get distracted, then that is where, we start facing difficulties, right? And you slowly need to inculcate the habit of paying attention in class. Yes? Secondly, now because I have a huge chapter in my hand, I will not take intermittent doubts when I do the chapter revision. I will stop for doubt boards where I'm going to be taking topics. So I may do a huge chunk of revision and then I will be taking doubts. Which is why, what do I need to do, right? I will take doubt breaks, Bacha Aryan, don't worry, I will definitely do that. But what I need you to do, write your doubts down, right? Write it down and keep it ready with you so that when maybe it could be that I will already teach that. When I'm starting cell and you ask me doubt related to cell organelles, you know I'm going to cover that topic anyway, right? There is no topic that I'm going to skip and go. Yes? So I will make it a point that I will try to wrap it up. Harsimran, it will take me 2 hours. Today's class, it's actually pretty long today. PDF for many kids who will ask me, it is available in the description of this video. There is no mentee. So whoever comes later and asks for mentee, please tell them that there is no mentee. Okay? Are we ready? See, these are like a few things. If you tell me, ma'am, you are very strict and all that, I don't know what to say, right? But this is what's going to happen, right? Rishabh, I hope you are all, it's okay. We will do it soon. Mentee will be later, but not now. Notes are available in the description of the video. Next, if you want individual videos for in-depth concept explanation, all the links are available in the description again. You can check it out, right? Awesome. Okay. All right, so I can see all of you are here. Now again, let me tell you one thing. If you like the way we teach, you like studying with us BYJU'S, don't forget to hit the like button on this video, and most importantly, don't forget to subscribe, right? So with this, of course, students, with this in mind, we'll get started. Okay? Now next 15 minutes, ultimate focus I need. I'm going to cover a big chunk of it, and then we will make sure that we will cover, right? Awesome. Yes, Menti, we will do for cell lesson soon. Don't worry, Shivani. Don't worry. Okay? Okay. So now we will first start with chapter revision covered with important topics, right? So we're going to get started. Now let's talk about cell. Now whenever we think of cell, I would always like you to think about Lego blocks or building blocks, right? So when we were young and when we were, of course, playing with building blocks, we knew that these were the basics, and from these building blocks, we could construct anything, right? So similarly, if you think about it, cells that are there are basically the building blocks of life, which is why we call cell as the basic unit of life or the basic structural and functional unit of all living organisms. Now, why do I call cells as the basic structural and functional unit? So we use the word structural unit because of the word structure. That means if there is any living organism, right, you, me, any animal, any plant we take, if that is living, it has a certain kind of structure, right? Our body has this kind of structure because of the cells, right? It is because of the cells, and that is what together builds up the structure. And why do we say that it is the basic functional unit? We say that it is the basic functional unit because each cells that are there carry out important life activities, right? So in your next grade in 10th standard, you will learn about what those important life activities or life processes are, which is why we see that exchange of gases, nutrition, all of these things are some important functions that they carry out, which is why cells are known as the basic structural and functional unit. Now next up, if cells were the basic foundation of living organisms, if it was the basic structural and functional unit, who actually came across these cells? Now, of course, the idea of what living organisms were made up of, right? Scientists wanted to get to know that for a very long time, right? Which is why we see that the first person who coined the term cell was Robert Hooke. Very, very important, students. They can ask this as an MCQ question, 1 mark question on who discovered cells. It is Robert Hooke in the year 1665. What did he do? He observed cork cells under the microscope, right? So what are cork cells? They are the cells that make up the bark of the tree, right? And he saw that they had a honeycomb-like structure, right? So we saw that it had a honeycomb-like structure, and it reminded him of the cells in the monastery, which is why he coined the term cells. Yes? Now, much later in 1674, Anton van Leeuwenhoek, very enthusiastic, I would say, scientist who was there, he was the one who observed living cells. Now, understand that these cork cells that are there, they are dead cells, right? These are dead. While on the other hand, first living cells that were there were discovered by Anton van Leeuwenhoek. He saw them moving around, which is why he called them as animalcules. Now, these are the important scientists that you need to know about. Apart from that, you also have to know about Robert Brown, right? So, Robert Brown in the year 1831 was the one who discovered nucleus, followed by which we also had Purkinje in the year 1839, who discovered or coined the term protoplasm. So these 4 scientists, you can get questions on the same, star mark this pointer. Now for students who will ask me what is protoplasm, I will cover what is protoplasm in just a bit, right? So these are the important scientists when we talk about the cell's history. Now, of course, there were many many scientists who are involved in studying and understanding not just the structure of the cells, but the nature of the cells. Now, what do I mean by nature of cells? Basically, how the cells are behaving, what activities they are doing, right? Are all cells the same? Are all cells different, right? So here there were many scientists. And in those set of scientists, we see that one set of scientists that all of us should be aware about is Schleiden, Schwann and Virchow, right? So here we see that they came together, especially Schleiden and Schwann came together and they proposed the cell theory, right? And much later, Rudolf Virchow made an addition to the cell theory, and we have the cell theory postulates or the cell theory postulates, so you can say the cell theory terminologies that are there, right? So now, of course, if you see what are the postulates, you can take a screenshot. This is also important, right? So now, of course, here we see that cell theory that is there says that all living organisms are made up of cells or the product of cells, right? Or what basically comes as a result of cells, yes? Then, of course, we see that cells make up the basic structural and functional unit of the living body. And we see that all cells arise from pre-existing cells. So this was the pointer which was added by Rudolf Virchow much later, right? Now, of course, from this we understand that cells form the basic fundamental units. But are all living organisms the same? I want you to give me a yes or no in the live chat. Now, are all living organisms made up of the same one kind of cells? Yes or no, right? Absolutely not, right? All living organisms, we realize, although cells form the basics and what do you say, very basically, upar say, if you think about it, there are some basic structure they perform, there are some basic functions that they perform, right? But living organisms, even though everything is made up of cells, they're quite different from one another, right? If you look at me versus a plant versus a doggy versus maybe a fungi versus a bacteria. We're all different from each other, right? So broadly, living organisms that are there can be categorized into two. And there are various bifurcations or ways in which we can divide living organisms. But in this case, we can divide them based on number. So based on number, we see that living organisms can be categorized as unicellular organisms and multicellular organisms, right? Now, in the case of unicellular organisms, we see that their whole body is just made up of one single cell, right? So, one single cell is the whole organism. So, one such example is that of bacteria. Now, students, can you think about some other examples of unicellular organisms where their body is just made up of one single cell? That means whatever you and I, whatever activities we carry out, very similarly, there are activities that they carry out primitively within their body. And very good, amoeba, paramecium, there are certain type of algae which are all examples of unicellular organisms, right? Now, on the other hand, right, we see that we have multicellular organisms. Now, multicellular organisms are those organisms whose body is just made up of, our body is made up of multiple cells, right? This human body cannot be one single cell, right? And we see that we're made up of trillions and trillions of cells. Now, when so many cells are involved, right? When so many cells are involved, all these cells cannot do whatever they feel like. You imagine if there were trillions of cells and each cell did what it felt like. That is not going to happen, right? They also need to come together. They also need to coordinate and work to carry out certain activities. Which is why in such cases, the complexity of the body increases, right? So we see that there are humans, plants, fungi, which are certain category of fungi again, which are examples of multicellular organisms. Protozoans, yes, are examples of unicellular organisms. And in fungi also, yeast is unicellular. While remaining other fungi that are there, they come under the category of multicellular, right? So far, I hope all of you here are with me. So when I say complexity of body organization increases, so basically, which we have learned in our second chapter, tissues, right? In multicellular organisms, you will not find one kind of cells, right? You find different types of cells. Cells that come in different shapes and different sizes. Now, students, this topic is very important. We normally neglect this topic, but normally for give reason, right, or assertion reason, these kind of questions will come, right, which is based on shape and size of different cells. So, especially when we talk about different shapes and sizes, we observe, right, especially in our body, Our body is carrying out so many activities. We are able to move, we are able to produce energy, we are able to, utilize oxygen, we are able to utilize nutrients, we are able to get rid of waste, right? All of this is happening because we don't have one type of cell, but rather our body has so many different types of cells, right? And all these cells, even though they are different, how am I saying they are all different from each other? Based on their shape and based on their size. Now, why are cells of different shape and size? Can you tell me? I have indirectly explained this to you, but in one word, if you have to tell me, why do cells exist in different shapes and size? The answer is very simple. To carry out dash. Very, very good, right? It's to carry out its functions. I am not taking any of your names right now, but all of you are giving me the correct answers, right? They come in different shapes and size in order to carry out specific functions. So if you think about a neuron, it is elongated because they have to be the ones transporting the messages, right? RBCs are also known as erythrocytes. Somebody was asking me. RBCs are also known as erythrocytes. If my spelling is wrong, I apologize. But basically, they are discoidal or they are biconcave in shape because they help in transport of oxygen. Muscle cells that are there, they are spindle shaped because, or rather they have a broad, they have a broad center and tapering ends because especially these kind of muscles help with movement, right? And then of course we have WBCs, which are of course irregular or amoeboid in shape because they help in getting rid of all the unwanted particles, right? So this right here are the reason. Now one more thing that you need to remember here, which is an important pointer. Size of animal, right? Size of animal versus size of cell. This is also another question that they will ask in the examination. Do you think there is a difference in the size of a cell in an elephant versus a rat? Yes or no? Is there difference in the size of a cell in an elephant and a rat? Does the elephant have bigger cells because it is big in size, or the rat has smaller cells because it is small in size, right? So for those of you who have a confusion here, let me clear this out because this is also an important assertion reason question, or it is a give reason question which they will ask in your examination. Star mark this in your textbook. Yes? Answer is no. There is no correlation between size of cell and size of animal. But if I change this to, is there a difference between the size of an animal and number of cells? Yes or no? If I say, is there any correlation, right, between size of cells and number of cells, then what will you tell me? Yes, right? They differ in size because of the number. See, elephants are bigger size probably because they have relatively more number of cells, right? That's contributing to their size. But elephant does not have bigger sized cells per se, right? Very good, all of you. I'm good that your fundamentals in this topic is very, very clear, right? So with this, if you see, we have understood about the basics that are there. Now, some of you might have found this explanation to be very direct because I am directly covering the important concepts. Understand that this is not a one shot. I am doing a chapter revision in the assumption that you have read the chapter at least once, right? So I hope you are all clear. Now, before I take my first doubt board, I'm going to cover one small topic and we will move to doubt board. Okay? Now, of course, in this particular case, right, we see that we have understood about the basics of cells that are there, right? Basics of cells we have understood. Now, if you look at an animal cell versus a bacterial cell, we observe, right? We observe that there are some common aspects. We see that they have a nucleus or a nucleoid region where there is something called as genetic material which is present, right? So we see that genetic material is present. Now along with that, we also observe that they have some jelly viscous like fluid called as cytoplasm. Now along with that, we also observe that they have something called as cell membrane also, right? So we see that across different cells, we observe that more or less, right? More or less, more or less some similar structures are there, which is why broadly we see that in this particular case, in all cells, or rather in most cells rather, I will rephrase myself, we see that the three common parts we observe are cytoplasm, cell membrane and nucleus, which is nothing but the genetic material, okay? Now, we will first move on to cell membrane. But before I do cell membrane, because cell membrane is again very exam relevant, I would like to stop and take a doubt board, right? I'm going to stop and take a doubt board section. But so far on a scale of 1 to 10, right? On a scale of 1 to 10, are we feeling confident, right? Yes. Division of labor. Harsimran, division of labor is basically division of work, right? So when I say there is division of work, see, you cannot have, in our case, if you think about it, so many complex processes are happening within our body, right? You cannot have the same type of cell carry out all the different processes, yes? Which is why we see that there are muscle cells which are primarily responsible for movement. You see RBC is primarily responsible for transport. So the work that is there has been divided. Now you imagine in class there is a project work. Everybody cannot pour their head into one single project work, right? So, I mean, in order to do that one single project, everybody cannot do everything, which is why the work gets divided amongst all of you. So that is what we meant by that. Yes? Cytoplasm, see, topics I'm about to explain, I will tell you, okay? Cytoplasm, protoplasm, I'm going to explain. But I am asking so far in what I have explained, do you have doubts, right? Ostrich egg is bigger. In the human body, our egg cell is bigger, but in general, ostrich egg size is bigger. Yes? Okay. Ma'am, types of cells. JT Bacha, I've explained in detail. You can just rewind back a little, right? But basically, cells come in different shapes and sizes in order to carry out different functions, right? Yes. Why is cell called as basic? I spend my time in this. You have leaf, right? Leaf has a certain shape. Why am I drawing leaf like this? Because we've seen the structure of the leaf to be like that. Now, why is leaf having this structure? Because of all the cells which make up the leaf. Now, what is function of leaf? Function of leaf is to perform photosynthesis, right, Jasmine? So, which is why if I say leaf is performing photosynthesis, what exactly is performing photosynthesis? It is actually the cells of the leaf, right? Which is why it is the basic structural and functional unit. Yes? Robert Brown discovered the nucleus. Yes, okay, I hope we are clear. Awesome. Why muscle cells have spindle shape? So that it allows the contraction and relaxation, right? Yes. How does virus enter into the cell? It will basically merge with the plasma membrane and it will enter through the plasma membrane, right? Photoautotrophic means that basically photosynthesis. Plants prepare their own food, autotrophs. Photoautotrophic means they are using light. Yes? Animal and bacterial cell in the end. Okay? See, why do muscles do contraction? You've learnt in tissues wala chapter also for movement. Yes? Ribosome in our body is ATS. Okay. Awesome. Are we good to go? Shall I move on? Right? Shall I move on? What is flagella? Flagella that is there is basically a whip-like structure that helps in movement. See, when I do ribosomes, I will explain. See, a lot of questions that you are asking me, I can see that there are going to be topics I'm going to explain further, right? Yes. See, on viruses, I have a separate video made which is coming to you in the weekend, right? In-depth detail of viruses. So, don't worry about virus wala topic. In-depth, you will have an explanation, right? Telegram mein, you will get updates. ठीक है, WBC function, fight against all pathogenic substances, right? Shall we move on? Shall we move on to the next topic? Okay. Electron microscope is basically a structure that will allow, right? It's basically a high resolution microscope that allows us to observe certain structures, right? Yes, okay. Shreya, I will explain that again. I have questions based on that also, so it will help us in understanding things better. Okay, notes will be provided, cell division I will teach. Now we will do cell membrane. See, cell membrane is a very, very important topic, right? Now if students are listening to me very carefully, right? Very, very carefully, if you listen to me, you will understand that I am teaching every topic and I am going pretty slowly also. I am not even rushing this process. I am making sure I am going in detail so that you understand better. JT, that is a good question, but can I finish cell membrane and teach you this? right? Saloni, I'm about to teach this, so don't worry, right? Okay, let's get started on cell membrane, right? Yes, Srimai, but I request you to not continuously go on with spamming in this manner because we're listening in class. Now, when we talk about cell membrane, right? So, cell membrane that is there is basically the outermost boundary, right? So, we know that it is the boundary of the cell, right? So, just like every house. So, if I have to give you an analogy, if you see every house, right? We know that no house is there. I mean, of course, most houses that are there, we know that there will be a gate, right? So, we see that there will be a gate through which only you can enter into your house. And surrounding that, we also see that we have walls, right? We have walls that surround our house. So, just like how we have this boundary, we also see that the cells that are there have a very similar gate and boundary. And this boundary is what we call as cell membrane. Now, cell membrane is also called as plasma membrane. So, before a student asks me, ma'am, cell membrane and plasma membrane are different? Absolutely not. They are more or less the same thing, right? So, cell membrane is the outermost boundary that is there. And if you look at it, we see that this is what separates the insides of the cell. So when I say boundary, it separates the inside cellular content or the cellular whatever is there inside the cell versus the outside, right? Very simple and easy. Now, if you were to look at the structure of the cell membrane, we see that the cell membrane here, now structure is also a little bit important for us, right? Now, if you look at the structure of the cell membrane, we see that it is made up of a lipid bilayer, right? So, we see that it has this ball-like structure, right? So, this ball-like structure is phosphate. Let me make a big ball so that I can write it. So, this right here is called as a phosphate, yes? And we see that there is a tail. This is what we call as a lipid tail. Now, lipid is kind of like fat, right? It's a type of fat that is there, or they're made up of fat molecules. It's as simple as that, right? So, we see that there is this structure, which is why we also call this as a phospholipid, right? So, when I say phospholipid, phospho means phosphate head and lipid tail. Now, why is it called as lipid bilayer? Because if you observe, we see that there is one layer here. Layer number 1, and if you see there is layer number 2, and if you notice we see that the heads are facing outside and the tails are facing inside, right? So we have head facing outsides and tail facing inside, yes? So this is what we mean as the phospholipid bilayer or a lipid bilayer. Now, along with this, we see that it is not, the plasma membrane is not just made up of a phospholipid bilayer, but rather we see that there are various proteins also which are present, right? So, we observe that there are various proteins as well which help in the transport of substances, yes? So, this is the basic structure as per NCERT that you need to remember. This can come for 2 marks. Describe the structure, right? So, this is all you need to know. It's as simple as that. Now, what are the functions? This functions wala part is super duper important, right? Yes, we have types of proteins, Ulma Khan. Yes, we have intrinsic, extrinsic, transmembrane. But as per NCERT, we're not going so much in detail. Since it's a revision, we are touching base upon the important topics. So quickly to revise, a cell membrane has a phospholipid bilayer. We have proteins which are present on the outside, which we call as extrinsic proteins. Proteins which are deeply embedded in the cell membrane, which we call as intrinsic, and transmembrane proteins as well. But all you need to know is there are types of proteins. It's as simple as that. Don't go too much in detail. Yes? Now, what are the functions? We saw that cell membrane is basically a boundary separating outside and inside. But what are the functions? So, first and foremost, the primary function of cell membrane is to monitor what goes inside and outside the cell. Now, why do we have a gate? You imagine if that gate had a security guard, right? The security guard is going to monitor who goes inside and outside. So, just like in school, right? Do you think you can enter any school? Can you go and enter any school you want to? No, right? You can't go and enter any school you feel like. You are allowed to enter into your own school. So, when you have to go to your own school, what will happen? Every day, all of you have to wear ID card. No? All of you have to wear an ID card that tells what's your name, which grade you are in. Not like your security bhaiya knows all 500, 800 students who are there in school. He doesn't remember everybody's name. But how will he know that you have to come to this school and no other students? Because you have an ID card or because of the uniform that you are going to wear, right? So based on all of this, he is able to identify, right? He is able to identify that you are from the school. So similarly, the cell membrane is also like your security guard. He will not let anybody enter. Okay, cell membrane is not going to allow anyone to enter. The cell membrane will monitor what goes inside and outside, right? So movement of substances in and out is monitored, which is why we see that this is why we say that the cell membrane is selectively permeable. Now I will take 1 minute of time to answer a very big doubt. Ma'am, we have selectively permeable and we have semi-permeable. So is my cell membrane actually selectively permeable or semi-permeable? How many of you still have this doubt, right? How many of you here have this doubt as, ma'am, selectively permeable versus semi-permeable? What is the difference? Yes? So now let me tell you one thing, right? First of all, what do we mean by permeability? I have cleared it multiple times, but I'm sure there'll still be students who are a little doubtful about it. Now, permeability, right? Permeability is nothing but allowing things. It is allowing certain substances to move in and out, right? So I can just say allowing substances to move in and out, right? So that is what we understand as permeability. Now there is a meaning. So this is what is permeability. I've written it on the screen, right? Now next up we have a doubt which is selectively permeable and semi-permeable. See, semi-permeability here is mainly with respect to size of molecules, right? So here it is with respect to size of molecules. Now, selectively permeable means it is selectively allowing certain molecules to enter and exit. So there is some monitoring happening. It's not only with respect to size, but it is also with respect to what kind of molecule is entering and exiting, right? So in our case, in the cell membrane's case, it is semi-permeable, but more or less the word you have to use is, it is selectively permeable, right? Now we know that there are some which are freely permeable. That means that it will allow everything to go through it, right? It will allow everything to pass through it. But in selectively permeable, only selective substances. Now if I say it is impermeable, that means that no substances are allowed to pass through it. Yes? Very good. Now in this case, right, this selective movement of substances. So basically if I say movement of substance, can I also say transport of substance? Yes or no? Students, give me a yes or no in the live chat. Should not be like, ma'am is not taking doubts, I will fall asleep in between, right? Yes. So now, can you tell me, right? Can I say that movement of substances is also transport of substances? Yes, very good, right? Now, transport can happen in two ways, right? Now, this is also super duper important. Now, common example we can give you, right? Common example. How many of us have gone cycling? At some point, I'm sure that all of us have gone cycling, no? And when we go cycling up the hill, oh, so much effort we have to put. We have to keep going and cycling, putting lot of effort, right? When we put in a lot of effort, that means a lot of energy is going into it. But when you're going downhill, right, upar se niche when you have to go, aram se you can go like that. You don't even need to pedal. You don't even need to put effort. You will aram se go down, right? You will aram se go down the hill, right? Very day life example. So now keeping this analogy in mind, if you have to see, transport can also happen in two ways, right? Transport can happen either as active transport. I hope you are able to see this. And we have passive transport, right? Now, active transport that is there basically requires energy, right? So, energy gets utilized in active transport, right? Now, we also see we have passive transport. Yes, you can say that, Ulma, no problem, right? So, now, of course, we see that we have passive transport. Passive means no energy is required, right? Easy peasy. Active, we are active, we need energy to be active. If I'm like, oh, I don't feel like studying today, then you're not putting a lot of energy, so passive, right? So now we will explore a little more on passive transport because so many questions come from passive transport, right? Now then the next part is going to be the slightly tricky part, which is why again I need your focus and attention, right? Focus and attention for the next 10 minutes, after which I will take a doubt board, right? Easy peasy. Awesome. Thank you, Preetam. Yes. Now, passive transport, Harsimran, is what I'm going to say first. First type of passive transport that we are going to be looking at is diffusion, right? Now, diffusion is a topic you've learned in chemistry also. Now, you're learning in bio also. So understand that whatever you learn in science, right, it's not, there is no ever, in our body, there's no bifurcation of physics, chemistry, biology. Okay, in our body, everything is happening. Chemistry is also happening, physics is also happening, biology is also there, right? So we know all about this. So now we have diffusion. Now, first and foremost, what is diffusion? Anybody who wants the definition of diffusion, please take a screenshot. Now, diffusion can be simply defined as the free movement, right? I add this extra word which says it is the free movement of substances. So, from the word free movement only we know, right? We know that we are talking where no energy is involved. So, it moves from a region of higher concentration to a region of lower concentration, right? So, this is as simple as that. Now, normally, what kind of substances show this kind of diffusion movement, right? What shows diffusion movement or what diffuses? It is mainly your gases, right? So gases like oxygen, carbon dioxide, right? Normally they are transported with the help of diffusion. So we see that they move across a concentration gradient. Now what is a concentration gradient? Concentration gradient is basically simply defined. I don't want to give a technical definition, but if I have to give you an easier definition, concentration gradient can be basically defined as amount of molecules. How many? Across the concentration gradient. That means that there are some molecules here, there are some, it is moving from one region to the other, right? There's a change in concentration. So that's what we're moving at when it goes, because there's a difference in number, right? High and low. Why am I saying high and low? Because there is a difference, right? So that difference is what we refer to as a gradient, okay? I'm giving you a very oversimplified definition. Please understand, if you search for it, you will get a technical definition and you will say, Aishwarya ma'am is telling something else altogether. I'm simplifying it for you, that's all, right? I'm not going into technicalities of it. So your gases here show your diffusion movement. It goes from higher to lower region, right? So it can go from outside to inside, right? It can be from outside to inside, or it can be from inside to outside also, right? So it is basically in both regions, but always high to low. Now, what about water, right? What about water molecules? Because we know water is also very essential, right? Water is also needed. So, how does water move? Does water move through diffusion? Well, it actually does, right? It moves through a type of diffusion which we call as osmosis. Now, what is osmosis? Osmosis is the movement of water molecules from a region of higher concentration to a region of lower concentration across a semi-permeable membrane. Students, if you get an MCQ question, right, based on osmosis, if semi-permeable membrane is not there, you know that that is not your answer. Long gone are the days when they'll ask you to define osmosis and everything. They can ask you an application-based question, or they'll ask you to pick which statement is right about osmosis, okay? So for that, you should know what are the keywords in a definition of osmosis, right? So osmosis is also a type that we observe, type of diffusion or movement of mainly solvent, right? Solvent molecules from where to where? Region of high concentration to low concentration across a semi-permeable membrane. Very good question, Amandeep, that I'll write to take it now only. Does this movement happen on its own? Yes, it happens on its own. Nobody is telling, "Arey, oxygen, time for you to go inside," or "Water, come out right now, it's time for you." That difference in concentration, that difference in amount is a signal for the cell that, okay, now it has to pass across, right? Now, in both cases, no Manaswi, no ATP is getting used. Have I mentioned ATP? Absolutely not, right? So, here, concentration of substances are important, right? I hope you are all clear. Ma'am, it will happen only for liquid molecules, primarily for liquid molecules, right? Primarily, I will say it happens for solvent or liquid molecules. Yes? Now, let me tell you one thing. When we are saying, okay, gases, you can still agree that gases normally move, right, across the bloodstream. But when we talk about liquids that are there, right, liquids that are there, or rather water molecules that are there, do you think only water will be there? Water alone will be flowing in our body? There is one channel only for water to flow? Yes or no? What do you think? Does water actually exist as water, or does it actually exist as a solution? How does it exist? Water, see, when we talk about movement of water molecules that are there, right, we normally see that it is in a solution form, right? So we see that in a solution, water is pani. So in this case, right, so we see that in this particular case, water that is there exists as a solution, right? So in this case, solution is nothing but solute plus solvent, or in this case I will say solute plus water, right? Now I can do multiple variations. I can take maybe very little solute plus lots of water, right? Now I'll substitute solute with something easy for all of you. Salt. I'll put salt, okay? Maybe I'll take very little salt and I'll put lots of water, right? Or I will take lots of salt plus very little water. Now, before I go into the next topic, I want you to understand one thing. If I say very little, lots of it, what is my measure? Can I just say very little salt? Is it a right way of measuring? You have learned about this in physics as well with respect to measurement of substances, right? So can you say that water, when I say very little, too much water, is it very, can I just take one solution and tell you this has very little solvent and lots of water? Can I just say as it is? I cannot, right? I cannot say that. When I say very little salt or lots of water, it should be with respect to something, it should be there for me to compare, right? I need something to compare it with, right? So which is why we see that based on this, we have different kinds of solutions, right? So we have different types of solutions that are there. So we see that we have hypertonic, hypotonic, isotonic solutions, right? So we have hypo, hyper, iso. Yes? Iso means that if let's take a cell and we put it in a solution, right? We see that concentration outside and inside, right? Always assume inside and outside. Assuming that inside and outside, this is how I make short forms to study. In isotonic, it is equal. Use an equal sign. What about in hypotonic? In hypotonic, we see that in this particular case, we see that there is, you can do comparison with respect to solute only, right? Do comparison with respect to solute, life becomes very easy. Don't do solute and solvent and get confused. Learn with respect to solute, yes? So in the case of a hypotonic solution, solute that is there is more inside than outside, right? So in this particular case, we see that inside the cell is greater than outside, right? While in hypertonic, outside we see that it is greater. So you can say that inside is lesser than outside. Yes, very simple and easy, okay? So now, why are we learning all of this? Why should you care how much solute is inside and outside? How does this happen at all? Now this matters, right? Now I'm going slowly because all of you should pay attention. Now understand that this right here matters because movement of osmosis matters, right? So if it is same, water and amount of solute is same, do you think osmosis will happen in an isotonic solution? Will osmosis happen in an isotonic solution? Yes or no? Yes or no? Will it happen? Is there going to be any movement of water? No, right? We see that there is going to be no net movement of water because water is equal outside and inside. Yes, it is equal outside and inside. Now in this particular case, in a hypotonic solution, we see that there is more solute. That means there is very little water, right? Outside we see that there is less solute. That means more and more of water is present, right? Which is why we see that water will move inside. In hypotonic solution, cell will swell, right? So basically, cell will swell. Now water, osmosis is happening from outside to inside. So this type of osmosis where water goes from outside to inside is what we call as endosmosis, right? So what do we call this? We call it as endosmosis, right? Now on the other hand, in this case, right, we see that there is more water molecules inside, less water molecules outside. So water is going to go outside the cell, right? So osmosis is happening from inside to outside. So what will happen here? Cell will shrink, yes? So which is why in this case we call this as exosmosis, right? Are we clear? Are we clear with this? So quickly students, this is a screenshot you can take which will differentiate between the three types of solutions. Why should you learn three types of solution? Because this will tell you about the net movement of water. Is it going from inside to outside or outside to inside, right? So this right here is a quick short question that is going to come based on this. Is osmosis going to happen in living cells only? Very good. Not necessarily. I can even do osmosis process taking a beaker, a muslin cloth and different concentration of solutions, right? So osmosis is a process that we don't just find it. We use osmosis in industrial application also, right? So osmosis is a process, but we observe it in living cells as well, right? Now, in extensive cases, in the case of when exosmosis becomes hyper, like especially in plant cells, what will happen? We see that in this particular case, the cells will shrink to such an extent that only all the water would have gone out, right? They will shrink to such an extent where there's a lot of empty space. So we call this part as, or we call such a cell as plasmolysed cell, or we call it as, or the process as plasmolysis. Now this right here is mainly observed in plant cells. Yes? Okay. Yes, no, don't worry. I will go faster. Don't worry. Now I'm going slow in the topics which need time. Rest of it I'll go fatafat. Don't worry. Then of course we also see that phagocytosis, right, happens especially in the case of amoeboid cells. We see that especially in amoeba, we see that with the help of the cell membrane, because of the flexibility of the cell membrane, they are also able to engulf the food, right? So we see that we are also going to engulf the food and they are going to take up the food. So phagocytosis is a process, right? You have it in the term of endocytosis, wherein substances from the outside can enter into the cell. But basically what you need to understand, cell membrane is also pretty flexible enough to carry out these such processes, right? Now apart from that, in certain organisms like plants, in the case of fungi and bacteria, they have an additional structure called as cell wall, right? And we see that the cell wall that is there is present outside the cell membrane, right? So we see that this is an additional structure. Now in the case of plant cells, we see that cell wall is made up of cellulose. We see that it provides mechanical strength and structure, and it also provides rigidity, right? So we see that cell wall in the case of plants is made up of cellulose. But in the case of bacteria, we see that cell wall that is there is made up of something called as peptidoglycan, right? And in the case of fungi, we see that it is made up of something called as chitin. So you can make an important pointer of this as well, because in Olympiads and NTSE, Olympiads especially, you can get this particular topic as well, right? So with this students, we have finished a very huge chunk which is cell wall and cell membrane, right? I hope we are clear. Yes? I hope we are clear. Osmoregulation is basically maintaining salt-water balance, right? Are we clear? Have we all understood? Good to go. See, more and more doubts that are there, don't worry. Ma'am, I think endosmosis and exosmosis happens in the same rate in isotonic. So we can see, if concentration gradient is the same, there will be no net movement. It is as simple as that. Osmosis is not a never-ending process. Osmosis will be stopped when the concentration becomes equal, right? Lysis means to split, to break down, right? Yes. Equilibrium is equal, maintaining balance. Equilibrium you can think of as balance. CC means, CC means crystal clear. Osmosis में semipermeable membrane is a must. Diffusion में doesn't matter. As simple as that, right? हाँ, अभी मैं थोड़ा जल्दी बताती हूँ, right? I'm going to pick up the pace now. So shall I finish the whole chunk? I'll finish off cytoplasm, nucleus and cell organelles at one go. Shall I do that? Shall I finish the rest of the topics at one go? So in the next 15-20 minutes, I'll be able to wind it off actually, right? So we'll have 45 minutes to solve 15 questions, right? So we will use the time wisely. Okay, meanwhile, all of you don't forget to hit the like button on the video, right? I'll give you 5 minutes break before we solve questions. I also need that. Is cell wall semi-permeable? Oh, thank you for that pointer, right? It is freely permeable, right? Cell wall is freely permeable. It will allow all the substances to pass through, right? But in this particular case, in cell membrane, it is selectively permeable. Okay? Okay. Now, I'm going to pick up the pace, which means I'm not going to see the chat. Please don't mind. Now we will move on to the next one, right? Example of mechanical strength is going to basically be rigidity, holes in shape, right? Okay. 20 minutes, we're going to finish the rest of the explanation. I'm going to be finishing it off. Now, of course, the next structure that we're going to be looking at is the nucleus or the nucleoid region, right? Now, of course, we know that the cell that is there is able to carry out various important structures, right? Or we see that the cell is able to carry out various functions. But how does the cell know what to do when, right? It cannot be like there is a school with students in it, but there is nobody to manage the students or tell the students what to do, right? Even though teachers are there, there are so many teachers, right? Somebody has to tell the teachers, okay, you control this particular class, you control this particular class. This is the timetable that has to be implemented. Somebody should be overlooking all the important functions, right? So this right here is done by a control center that is there in our body, which is what we call as nucleus. So the nucleus can be simply defined as the control center of the cell, right? Now if you look at in an animal cell, now we are going to look at a nucleus in an animal cell. Now in animal cells, we see that there is an outermost covering which is called as the nuclear membrane, and inside we see that there is a viscous fluid called as the nucleoplasm. Now inside this we find a structure called as nucleolus, which is a dense structure, right? So we observe that there is a dense structure present and there are nuclear pores present in the nuclear membrane. So the nuclear membrane is not a continuous membrane, right? There are breaks in between because of the existence of nuclear pores. Now why are nuclear pores present? Because there are things that move inside and outside the nucleus also, which is why through the nuclear pores they will be moving. Now we have a nucleolus, which is a dense structure that plays a very important role in the production of ribosomes, right? So these right here play a very important role in the production of ribosomes. But who exactly does the control of it, right? Who is exactly responsible for controlling all this function that happens? That is basically the genetic material that is there. So inside, if you observe, there are various thread-like structures you see, right? So we observe that there are these X-shaped structures, or otherwise what you would observe is thread-like structures, which we call as the genetic material. Now, what is the genetic material? Genetic material is basically the material that has all the information, right? If I call nucleus as the control center, it is because of this genetic material that has all the information that is necessary for carrying out various activities. Now, in our body, of course, this genetic material that is there exists as DNA, right? So, in our cells, it exists as DNA, which is deoxyribonucleic acid, right? So, DNA stands for deoxyribonucleic acid. And the DNA inside a cell is so long, right? So we see that it has a double helical structure and it is so long that if we stretch it out, right, it will be for kilometers and kilometers, yes? But if you see, all this DNA is found compressed inside a tiny cell that you and I cannot even see with our naked eye, right? So how exactly is it fitted inside to a nucleus? We see that the DNA that is there is condensed, or it is made tinier by making it compressed, right? So how is this happening? We see that with the help of proteins, we see that the DNA gets concised to forming thread-like structures called as chromatin. So understand that it is formed into thread-like structures which we call as chromatin. And this chromatin will get further condensed to form chromosomes. So if you have to understand the main difference between chromosome and chromatin, this is how you understand. Chromatin that is there will be thread-like. Yes? So in the nucleus, if you observe a thread-like structure, this is what we call as chromatin material. But if it forms highly condensed rod-shaped structures, right? So if you see rod-shaped structures, then it is going to be chromosomes, right? So we see that during cell division, which is a process we will discuss later, during cell division is when there is formation of chromosomes, while on the other hand, if it is thread-like or normally, we will find it as chromatin material. Now, what are the functions of the nucleus, right? I told you that it is the control center. That means it regulates various activities, right? It regulates various activities within the body. And we also see that this genetic material is important because they act as the heredity units. Now, what do I mean by heredity units? Now, whether you look at us, you look at our parents, you look at our grandparents, you look at our great-grandparents. In all the cases, we all look pretty much the same, right? We have one nose, two eyes, two ears, hands, right? We see that more or less there are certain characteristics which have been passed on from one parent generation to son or daughter generation, right? Generation after generation, this information is going. Not like after this generation, information has stopped, right? It has gone from one generation to the next. So that is because this genetic material is getting passed on, right? So we see that all this information is going from one generation to the other, right? So now, of course, these are the important functions that are there. Now, of course, based on the type of nucleus, we see that there are organisms which are present, right? Two kinds of organisms. We see that, or rather two types of cells. Students, 2-mark question will come for you from this topic. Star mark this, okay? You have prokaryotic cell and eukaryotic cell. Now, prokaryotic, pro means primitive, karyon means nucleus. Prokaryotic cell is a cell which has a primitive nucleus, right? That means that this genetic material is found concentrated in the cytoplasm and there is no nuclear membrane, right? So we see that there is no nuclear membrane which is present that will cover it, which is why do we say we call this as primitive? And this concentrated part inside the cell is called as a nucleoid region. Example, of course, is your bacterial cell, right? A bacteria is an example of a prokaryotic cell. Now, such organisms are called as prokaryote. So the cell is a prokaryotic cell, or we say the organism is a prokaryote. Yes? ठीक है. Chat में लड़ना मत. Please pay attention. I'll take your doubts. Okay? Next up, eukaryotic cells, right? Eukaryotic cells, U means well or U means true. Karyon means nucleus, right? That means that these guys have a well-defined nucleus, or we say that these have a genetic material which is found enclosed within a nuclear membrane, right? Which is why we call this as a proper nucleus. So normally such organisms are called as eukaryotes, right? So plant and animal cells are examples of the same, so easy peasy. Yes? Now next up we will look at the third part, which is the cytoplasm, right? Now cytoplasm that is there is a viscous jelly-like fluid which is present between, right? Where do we find the cytoplasm? It is present between the nucleus and the cell membrane. So between this we will find the cytoplasm, right? Now what is the cytoplasm responsible for? So first and foremost we see that the cytoplasm has a lot of tiny structures, right? Which also perform important functions for the cell, right? So we see that they have tiny cell which we call as cell organelles. So we see that we have cell organelles which are found within the cell. Now apart from that, we see that in the cytoplasm, various chemical reactions occur, right? So we see that there are various chemical reactions that occur within the cytoplasm as well. Now of course, we have another term which is called as protoplasm, right? Now is cytoplasm and protoplasm the same? Yes or no? In the chat very quickly. Is cytoplasm and protoplasm the same? Yes or no? Please spam mat karo, please. Yes? Absolutely not. It is not the same, right? Which means that in this particular case, the protoplasm includes all the living components, right? So we see that it includes all the living components, includes your nucleus, it includes some parts of the cytoplasm, right? So all the living components that are there make up the protoplasm, while cytoplasm is just the jelly-like fluid that has your cell organelles, right? So very good, very good. Yes, very good, Hema, very good, Prabha, very, very good. Yes? So with this, everybody, we have had a look at the three main components. Now, one more important difference between prokaryotes and eukaryotes is that in prokaryotes, we do not find any cell organelles, right? No membrane-bound cell organelles. While in eukaryotes, we find membrane-bound cell organelles. And what are the different kinds of cell organelles? We see that there's endoplasmic reticulum, Golgi body, mitochondria, plastids. We have lysosomes, centrosomes, right? So many of them, right? So first up, let's have a look at endoplasmic reticulum. Now, endoplasmic reticulum is very, very, very important because difference-based questions can come from this topic, right? Differentiate between ER and Golgi body. Differentiate between ER and mitochondria. Or within the types of ER also, you can get questions for the same. So everybody star mark this topic. Yes? Now we're going to learn about endoplasmic reticulum, which is the first kind of cell organelles. But before I talk about before I talk about the ER, cell organelles are basically tiny organelles, right? Tiny organ-like structures which carry out specific functions in the cell, right? So if I am saying that a cell is able to produce energy, it is getting rid of waste materials, it means that these cell organelles are the ones which are carrying all this out, right? So we see that this endoplasmic reticulum is basically membrane-bound tubular structures, or they appear like sheets, right? So this is how your endoplasmic reticulum inside a cell would look like. And they appear as long tubules that are there. Yes? So now, of course, if we were to talk about the functions of endoplasmic reticulum in general, right, we see that they play a major role, or they provide a skeletal framework to the cells, and additionally, they also help with certain transport of certain materials, right? So we see that it helps in transport of various materials between the cytoplasm to the nucleus, right? And along with that, we also see that they provide a framework, right? So we see that they provide a framework or a surface for various biochemical activities. So various chemical reactions are also taking place. Now we see that there are two types of endoplasmic reticulum. If you look at this image only, forget me telling you. If you look at this image, you see that the ER does not look consistent. It does not look the same throughout. We see that there is a difference, right? Which is why in this particular case, if you see, we see that there is rough ER and smooth ER, right? Now, if you look at it, rough ER that is there is basically, we call it as rough endoplasmic reticulum because on its surface, right? On its surface, we see that there are ribosomes which are present. Now, what are ribosomes? They are small structures which are either found attached to the ER, right? We find them attached to ER, or they are found freely in the cytoplasm, right? So we find them freely in the cytoplasm, floating, suspended in the cytoplasm. What do? They help in protein synthesis. So manufacturing of proteins takes place in the RER, which is the rough endoplasmic reticulum. While on the other hand, we have smooth endoplasmic reticulum. Now, smooth endoplasmic reticulum that is there is also a structure which has no ribosomes, right? Ribosomes here are absent. So that means that they don't play any role in protein synthesis, but rather they help in synthesizing lipids, right? So here I will remove this. They help in synthesizing lipids that is necessary for membrane formation. Now, in some cases, right, in vertebrates especially, we also see that the SCR and the liver cells that are there help in getting rid of some toxic substances as well. Now, collectively, if you see, your SCR is giving you lipid, right? Now, lipids are necessary, or lipids that are there are necessary for production of membrane, right? Or the cell membrane has lipid, cell membrane has proteins, right? So together, if you see, the ER helps in membrane biogenesis. Very good, right? So we see that it helps in cell membrane formation. What is membrane biogenesis? It means that it helps in Bio means living, right? Genesis means to synthesize or to generate. So here it helps in the generation of the cell membrane that is there, right? Now, of course, it's not just the ER alone, even the Golgi body plays a very important role in transporting this, which is why the next structure we will look at is the Golgi body, right? Now, this is a very easy way for all of you to study the functions of the different cell organelles, right? So, I'm going to skip to the second one where I'm going to talk about Golgi body. Now students will tell me, ma'am, Golgi body kya hai, Golgi apparatus kya hai, Golgi complex kya hai, is it all the same, is it all different? Understand that there are different terminologies which are used, right? Learn it as Golgi apparatus, it is as simple as that. Now if you see, these that are there are made up of flattened structures called as cisterns, right? So they are made up of flattened structures like this, and of course we also see that sometimes there are these ball-like structures which we call as vesicles, which originate from that. Now all you need to know is what are the functions of the Golgi body. Golgi body helps in modification of proteins, right? Now there are some proteins which are synthesized by the ER that cannot directly go and do its function. Even though the protein is manufactured and produced, the protein is not going to carry out its function. It requires some modification. So that modification that is there is done by the ER. And along with that, there are so many proteins which are produced. Who will know where this protein has to go? Should it go inside the cell? Should it go outside the cell? So all this packaging and transport is also done by the ER, right? I mean the Golgi body, which is why we also call it as the post office of the cell. So this is all about Golgi bodies. Now we have mitochondria, the most simplest cell organelle. Mitochondria that is there is a double membrane cell organelle which has its own genetic material, right? And we know that the inside or the inner membrane of the mitochondria is made into these finger-like projections that are there called as cristae. And what is their function? Mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell, right? Which is why they are responsible for producing ATP, which is the energy currency of the cell, right? And this ATP that is there, that is nothing but adenosine triphosphate. This is how our cell is able to carry out various activities. Swarit, how does this matter? You listen to me, right? That is important. Next up, we have lysosomes. For some reason, we are all very sad when learning about lysosomes because life somehow becomes very confusing for us, right? But it's very simple. Lysosomes that are there are basically membranous sacs, right? Single membrane sacs that are there. Lysosomes are produced by the Golgi body, right? And we see that it has various digestive enzymes. So if anything unwanted is produced in the body or enters into the cell, any old part of the body that needs to be gotten rid of, right? So all this garbage disposal work, this lysosome does, right? So it breaks down whatever is unnecessary or whatever can harm the cell that is there. And in case, if the cell in itself gets damaged, the lysosome will engulf it and eat it up, which is why it is called as the suicide bag of the cell. Then we have ribosomes, which we have already discussed, helps in protein synthesis. Then we have vacuoles, right? Now we have vacuoles which are there, which are present mainly in plant cells. Some animal cells have vacuoles, in some case they are absent altogether, right? Now we see that they are also membrane bound storage sacs, right? I would rather say they are storage sacs. And again we see that they help in storage of substances, storage of water, right? So and a lot of substances get stored inside it. It's as simple as that. Yes? Now of course in another case, right? A cell organelle which is exclusively present in plants only is the plastids, right? So plastids that are there are of three kinds. We have chloroplast, chromoplast, and we have leucoplast. So your chloroplast that is there is of course the most popular plastid that we have all learnt about, which of course helps with photosynthesis. They of course are double membranous again and contributes to it. Now chromoplasts that are there, right? So when we talk about chromoplasts, we see that they have various colored pigments in them like carotene, xanthophyll, and they provide color to flowers and fruits. While your leucoplast that is there is basically non-pigmented and helps with storage of substances, right? So with this of course we have covered a large chunk of it. Now we'll move on to the last topic, right? We've established, so far if you see, we've established how cells or why we say that cell is the structural and functional unit, and we have explored in great detail about it. But last but not the least, we have also understood that cells arise from pre-existing cells. So what do I mean by cells arise from pre-existing cells? That means that the cells that are there carry out a specific process which is called as cell division. What is cell division? It is a process by which cells produce new cells from itself, right? Now, what are the two types? You have mitosis and you have meiosis. Meiosis is specifically seen in the reproductive cells, right? So we find this in the reproductive cells, and meiosis is a process by which we are able to give rise to new organisms. While mitosis that is there is an equational division, right? So we see that this right here is an equational division that we observe in most other non-reproductive cells that are there. Yes? So with this everybody, these are some important pointers with respect to mitosis and meiosis. You can take a screenshot. But with this, of course, more or less, I have given you a concise chapter summary. And like I promised, 20 minutes mein, to I have wound up this part, right? And with this everybody, we are done with the top two things and we will move on to important questions. So what are the important questions we are covering? We're doing MCQs, we're doing 2 markers, 3 markers, case-based, 5 markers. And whatever topic we have discussed so far, we will have questions based on this, right? So how many of you want a quick 4-minute break, and at 6:20 we will resume a quick water break so that I can take doubts in the meanwhile, right? 2 cell organelles which have their own ribosome and DNA, chloroplast and mitochondria, right? Take a water break right now. I'm going to start only in the next 4 minutes. Don't worry. Take a water break. Now, somebody asked me, ma'am, why is chloroplast always green? Yes, chloroplast is always green because of the chlorophyll. Ma'am, if cells are made up of cell organelle, then why isn't cell organelle the basic unit? JT, that is because if you notice, every cell organelle is performing a specific function. If you take that cell organelle outside the cell, they will not be able to survive, right? So the cell which includes the cell organelle becomes the basic unit. So JT, I hope I have answered your question. Abhimanyu, somatic cells are the non-reproductive cell, like your skin cell, liver cell, RBC, they are all not involved in reproduction, no? So non-reproductive, yes? There are no 3 types of chloroplast. There are 3 types of plastids. I hope you are clear. Yes? Okay. No, there is no poll available. Chat may only you answer. We'll make process simple, no? Then we have to wait for poll and all of that. Why take a lot of time? But more than that, I hope you enjoyed this particular class. I hope you all didn't get bored in today's class. I know I took about 1 hour, 15 minutes to sort of just do the chapter summary. But you understand that this chapter is very long, right? So understand that when this chapter is very long and if you don't understand the concept, it becomes very difficult to solve. But if the concept is clear, now even with the summary, I'm telling you, aaram se ho jayega. Hello, Ayan. Hello. Komal bacha, 3 types of plastids. ठीक है? मैम मजा आ गया. अरे, I am so happy to hear that. ठीक है? Now, how many of you are super duper excited for the questions, right? Which drug does the SCR detoxify? There are various categories of drugs that are there. Various categories. Yes. Ma'am, if cells, they are in... Okay. Ma'am, if somatic cells are non-reproductive, then they are a constant amount of it all the time. Yes. So with cell division, we know that every cell is, it's not like every cell is, immortal for life. Every cell has a lifespan. That means so many days that it will be alive, after which it will be dead. So if you look at it, if I'm right, RBC ka lifespan is 120 days. So as much as there is cell death, you need that many cells to replace it also, right? mtDNA is nothing but mitochondrial DNA. Bhavishya Sai. So shall we get started, everybody? Are we ready? Ma'am, there are only 23 pairs, but there is chromosome. 23 pairs of chromosome in every cell. 23 pairs in every cell, Varun Josen. Okay. So now, of course, I hope all of you are excited. Fatafat hit the like button also. I can see the likes are very less. Does this goes to show that you love my class, but you will not show me love, right? You should also show me love by hitting the like button and the subscribe button, right? So as much as you enjoy my class, I enjoy teaching the class also. Okay, so we'll get started. I'm not going to waste too much time. Time is precious. Time is money. So we will get started. Question number 1, everybody. NCERT exemplar question. A cell will swell when You have 4 options from which I need you to identify the correct answer. I am not going to go through all the detailed steps that are there, right? But I want you to make sure that you pick the correct one, right? Concentration of water molecules is higher than the concentration in the surrounding medium. Concentration of water molecules in surrounding medium is higher than the water molecules, right? Inside the cell. Concentration of water is same inside and outside. Concentration does not matter. From this, what have we understood? We know concentration matters, right? Now, when will cell swell? Cell will swell when water enters inside, right? Now, we know that this process is called as endosmosis. Yes? So, cell will swell when endosmosis happens. That means water from outside. There should be more water outside, less water inside. Then what is the correct answer? Very good. 1 mark for all of you. A correct answer is option B. Yes? Very good. Use logic, read the statement, don't be in a hurry to answer. Next one. Which among the following is not a function of ribosome? So first you have to identify which are the functions and then identify which is not a function. 1 mark question. Helps in protein manufacture, helps in enzyme manufacture, help in lipid manufacture, help in starch manufacture. Yes? What does the ribosomes, or which are the functions that, which among the following are not the functions of ribosome? Okay, take your time. You need to read through the combinations and give me the correct answer. Now I am seeing a combination. Ma'am, I am new and I cannot understand. Ayan bacha, you rewind and watch from the beginning. That will be best for you. Okay. I can see there is a huge tie between option B and option C. Okay, there is tie between option B, C and D in the live chat. Now students watching this video later, pause the video and you can try answering. It should be very, very simple. Yes? Okay. Now let's solve it together. What are ribosomes? We know that ribosomes are tiny cell organelles which are either found attached to the endoplasmic reticulum or they are found freely floating, right? Now they help in protein manufacture. So one is definitely a function. That means I can eliminate option A and I can eliminate option D, right? Option A and option D I can eliminate because it says 1. Now I'm left with B and C. It helps in manufacture of enzymes. How many of you know or how many of you feel like ribosome function is not to produce enzymes? Arey ma'am, how can you say it produces enzyme? It produces proteins, right? But if you remember, whenever I define enzymes, what are enzymes? Enzymes are nothing but chemical substances that increase the rate of a chemical reaction. And what is the nature of enzyme? What is the nature of enzyme? Enzyme ka nature mainly, enzymes are proteins. Enzymes are proteins only, right? They are a type of proteinaceous substance. That is one way of looking at it. Second, do you think when ribosomes help in lipid manufacture? No. You know that they are not responsible for fat manufacture. So directly also you can arrive, right? You can directly arrive saying that the 3 and 4 are not the functions of ribosomes because they are not involved in manufacturing lipids or starch molecules. So read the statement carefully. But majority of you got the correct answer. So 1. Samiksha, I'm not doing poll because it's easier this way. We can finish it off faster, right? That's why. Next up, identify the false statement. False, not true, false. So which among the following is incorrect? This is very easy. Array, very easy. Golgi body is involved in the formation of lysosome. Nucleus, mitochondria, plastid have their own DNA. Mitochondria is called the powerhouse of the cell. Cytoplasm is protoplasm. Easy peasy lemon squeezy. We know that Golgi body is involved in formation of lysosome. We know that nucleus, mitochondria, plastid all have their own DNA. And we know that mitochondria is the powerhouse because it produces ATP. So correct answer is D, which says cytoplasm is same as protoplasm. We know that cytoplasm and protoplasm are not the same. 1 mark. Very good. Moving on to question number 4, everyone. Now you have to identify the correct statement. That means 3 out of 4 are incorrect and you have to identify which is correct. Enzymes which are packed or which are present in the lysosome are made in the RER. RER and SER produce lipid and protein respectively. ER is related to the destruction of plasma membrane. Nucleoid is present inside eukaryotic cell. Arey, easy peasy. If you thought you don't know what is correct, there are statements which make absolutely no sense, right? So you have to identify which is the correct statement. Now when you see, I can see there is a competition between A and B. So we know that nucleus, that is nucleoid, is not present in eukaryotic cell. It is present in prokaryotic cell. So this statement is false, right? Endoplasmic reticulum is responsible for destruction of plasma membrane. Absolutely not. It's responsible for membrane biogenesis. It's for synthesis. So this statement is also false. Now students who got confused with option B, right? Students who got confused with option B. RER and SER produce lipid and protein respectively. That means the statement says that RER produces lipid, SER produces protein. Respectively means this. Is it correct? Is this statement correct? Is rough endoplasmic reticulum responsible for the synthesis of lipids? No. It is responsible for the synthesis of protein, right? But in this case, SER is responsible for synthesis of lipid. So here they've interchanged it. Ulta pulta kar diya. This is why this is also false. This is why the correct answer is option A, right? So some of you did not understand what respectively means and you got a little confused, right? So I think Vinay and Komal and some of you, Satyam, you guys got confused here. But now I hope you are clear, right? So this is the correct answer. 1 mark for all of you here. Moving on to question number 5. Which cell organelle plays a crucial role in detoxifying various poisons and drugs in a cell? Yes? What is the structure which is involved in detoxification? In vertebrates especially we find it, right? Very good, easy peasy question. We've just discussed. Yes. Correct answer is smooth endoplasmic reticulum, right? So in the smooth endoplasmic reticulum, we see that especially in vertebrates, like in the liver cells, we observe that there is detoxification, right? So correct answer is option C. Moving on. So with this, everybody, 5 questions for MCQs. 5 out of 5 all of you have scored, right? Ma'am, how B no? No. Crucial role in detoxification. See, there's a difference between detoxification and removal of substances, right? Detoxification in this case is going to be SCR. Removal of unwanted substances is going to be lysosome. Okay? Yes, very good. Star mark for all of you. Now let's go on to the next set of questions, which is going to be 2 marks subjective question, right? So these are going to be 2 marks subjective. Now here I want you to focus on how to write answers, because biology may half the time answers will go haywire because keywords will go missing. So I will focus on that as well. You can give me keywords in the live chat. Those of you who are watching the video later, pause it and watch it. It's going to be simple. Why is cell called as the structural and functional unit of life? Very simple, right? Yes, very, very easy, right? So 2 marks, which means 1 mark for explaining why it's called the structural unit and why it is called as the functional unit. Now, I always explain this point with an example, right? So if you take any structure, if you take a leaf, right? We know that the leaf has this kind of a shape because it is made up of various cells that give it its shape. So hence the cell is called as hence cells are called as the structural unit because the cells are what gives the living organism or the living body its shape. Now, why is it called the functional unit? Now, if I tell that the main function of the leaf is to perform photosynthesis, right? So, if I say the main function of the leaf is to perform photosynthesis, who exactly is doing this photosynthesis? It is nothing but the cells of the leaf, right? Which is why it is called as the functional unit. So, when you're writing this answer, again, a common confusion that you have is, ma'am, for 2 marks, should I write 3 points, 4 points, 5 points? You need to write 2 main points, right? So, 2 main points you have to write. So, in this case, cells are called as the structural unit because the body or structure is made up of cells. They are also responsible for carrying out various chemical functions also. Hence, they are called as the structural and functional unit. You write these 2 points, you will get 2 marks. Yes? Very, very easy. Abhi moving on to the next one. State the cell theory and name the scientist who presented it or stated it, right? 2 marks question for this particular thing. Easy peasy. So can you tell me who are the scientists who are involved in this? Right? Who are the scientists which are involved in this particular process? Yes? क्या हुआ स्वरित? क्या हुआ? Schleiden, Schwann and Virchow. Yes, very good, right? So we saw that Parag, it is not Purkinje, it is Schleiden, Schwann and Virchow. Asta, note the spelling of Virchow. Spelling mistake ho gaya to marks katega, right? So please keep in mind the spellings as well, because biology mein half the time you lose marks, right? Arey, 15 minutes Jannat, it will be done. 15-20 minutes, not more than that. I'm in question number 6 already. Very good. So Schleiden, Schwann, Virchow are the scientists who presented the cell theory, right? What is the cell theory? All living organisms are made up of cells. We see that cells are the basic structural and functional unit, and all cells arise from pre-existing cells. Very, very good. I am so proud of all of you. I am sending hearts to all of you. Yes? So if you mention these 2 points, you will get 2 marks, right? 1 mark for answer. 1 mark for scientist, 1 mark for stating the postulates, right? Yes. Swarit, what do you want me to suggest? You tell me. Next up, I'm sure if you got this question in your exam, you all will be celebrating, no? How many of you will be like, yes, I got this question. Which cell is the powerhouse of the cell? Why? I am sure, when I was in 9th grade, I used to celebrate when I got this question. So easy it used to be. I know. Bio mein, I know there are some topics which you feel so good about it when the question comes, right? Shivraj, you can ask me. Swarit, if you're looking for bio books, first you study NCRT, right? If you're CBSE based, NCRT, right? After that, if you want questions, you do exemplar. Reference book mein, Lakbir Singh, Manjeet Kaur book is a good reference, but they have a lot of extra information. Normally, school mein, they will take from NCRT only. Board exam mein, they do NCRT, so you don't worry, right? Very good. Which cell is the powerhouse? It is nothing but mitochondria. So you will get 1 mark for writing. See, you have to write it down in statement. The powerhouse of the cell is the mitochondria, right? Why? Why not? Because it has its own DNA, right Satyam? It has its own DNA, but it contributes. Very good, Parag. Right? Very good, Parag. It helps in cellular respiration. What is respiration? Nothing but breakdown of glucose in order to release energy, right? So they help in producing energy in the form of ATP. That is nothing but adenosine triphosphate, right? So we see that it helps in the production of ATP. Very, very good. What if there was no mitochondria? If mitochondria is not there, then energy production will get hampered, right? So which is why we see that they are very, very important for the same. So when you're writing it down, mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell. I will give you 1 mark for writing this, right? So we see that during respiration, energy that is required for various chemical activity is produced by the mitochondria in the form of ATP. ATP is also a keyword because now you can't just say it is energy production. Half mark will get cut if you don't write ATP, right? So ATP you have to write, you write adenosine triphosphate or you only write ATP, that is up to you. But you have to write complete sentences, right? So you will get 1 mark for this as well. So you will get a total of 2 marks. Easy peasy. Next up, question number 9. I have 6 more questions, that's all. Why are lysosomes known as the suicide bags of the cell? Now if you had your PT1 and PT2, right? In PT1 and PT2, how many of you got this question? Samiksha, I say personally, I will recommend you write the full form, right? That will tell your science teacher that you know your concept very well, right? So you have to write down the full form of it. Yes, so as you all know, this question is a very popular question that will come in the examination, right? Even if it is a repeated question, ulta pulta mein this will come. They'll ask you what is the role of lysosome, or they will ask you lysosome is the suicide bag of the cell. Give reason and you will get it for 2 marks, right? So you will get this particular question, chances are very, very high. Which cell organelle is known as the protein factory? Ribosomes, right? Ribosomes are your protein factories, okay? Ma'am, this was in my paper today. Aha, see? So what are lysosomes? Lysosomes that are basically they are your membrane bound cell organelle which has a lot of digestive enzymes. But why do we call it as a suicide bag? Now there are times when your cell can get damaged, right? It can suffer some physical damage, or it can suffer maybe some chemical damage also, like internally it could suffer some damage. Now when the cell is damaged, it cannot do its own function, right? It has to be gotten rid of. Now who is responsible for getting rid of it? It is your lysosome. So whenever there is any disturbance, like for example, if it gets damaged, the lysosome will burst, right? Or the lysosome will burst, it will release its digestive enzymes and it will kill or eat its own cell, right? Which is why they are called as the suicide bags. So here you should say that when the cell is not working properly. If you don't say that the cell is not working properly and the lysosome is chuma releasing his enzyme, half mark deducted, right? So you should say when the cell is damaged, then it will release its digestive enzymes, right? Hence it is called as suicide bags. So as you know, 2 marks for the same. I'm so proud, Asta, so proud to read that. And so many of you have scored 38 out of 40 in science. That is amazing. That means that you all have good chances to do really well in your half yearlies also. More and more practice. That is all you need, right? Next up is a very, very important question. Star mark this. I'm sure this has happened. I mean, this has come in your examination already. How is a prokaryotic cell different from a eukaryotic cell? Or another way this question will come is, how is a bacterial cell different from an onion peel cell? They'll ask you this question also. They'll ask you this difference. Ulta pulta they will do. 2 marks. This is very important. It will come in your exam, right? So in prokaryotic and eukaryotic cell, unicellular, multicellular, yes Abhimanyu, but mainly you should write prokaryote and eukaryotic cell with respect to the nucleus and the organelles, right? Cell organelles that are there. So simple point. So prokaryotic cell, we see that there is no true nucleus, or you can elaborate on how they have only a nucleoid region, no nuclear membrane, right? So this can be no nuclear membrane, yes. So we see that genetic material is enclosed within a nuclear membrane, right? This is enclosed within a nuclear membrane. Now second point, we see that there are no membrane bound cell organelles, right? All this lysosome, right, ER and all we saw, that is not there. So no membrane bound cell organelles. While on the other hand, in this case, we see that there are membrane bound cell organelles. Yes? So we see that when you're writing this, 2 to 3 pointers, you can differentiate. Size also you can say. Smaller and larger, you can say that. But you need to write any 2 out of the 3 points that we have discussed. It is going to help you out. Kishwar Bacha, it's okay. Can you quickly go back? You can rewind from the beginning. Watch it in 2x. Aaram se ho jayega. Right? Watch. See, whenever you watch my videos later, you watch in 2x. Because if you see the pace at which I take live class, you will be like, Ma'am, I'll sleep right now. Put in 2x and watch. Yes. Thank you, Black Tiger. So sweet. Okay. Now moving on to 3 mark question. Right? So here we did 5 2 mark questions. Right? So we did 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Right? So here 2 marks may all of you have scored 10 out of 10. So totally 15 out of 15 you have scored. Right? 15 out of 15 all of you have scored so far. 2 stars for all of you for the same. Yes? Super duper proud. Tissues wala chapter agla hafta Monday ho jayega, right? Next Monday I'll be taking class. Next one, differentiate between hypotonic, hypertonic, isotonic, right? So you have to write difference in concentration and osmosis, right? So I'm directly going to take this because it's going to be easy. Hypertonic solutions have higher solute concentration, right? So here you can say they have higher solute concentration. While isotonic solution have equal solute concentration, while hypo has low solute concentration, right? So we see that this has low solute concentration. Next, of course, we know that when a cell is placed in a hypertonic solution, cell will shrink. While when in a hypotonic solution, cell will swell. Then of course in isotonic, no effect on cell, right? Then another thing is application of hypertonic solution is that it is useful in food preservation. While in this case, iso and hypo is not really that useful in food preservation, right? So that's why these are the 3 pointers. Now one more point you can add is exosmosis process. Here exosmosis takes place, no osmosis, right? And you can write endosmosis. Right? So these are some extra pointers. I'm not revealing I hope I'm revealing the answer fast, but it's also so that you guys can write it down or make some tips, right? I hope I'm not going so fast, right? Like, I hope that questions wise you're getting ample amount of time to solve. Students in my live class, please tell me if it is okay. I hope I'm not going too fast also that you are like, ma'am to has become Rajdhani today, right? Should not be that I have become Rajdhani or Vande Bharat. I should go in normal speed. Yes, we have time, I know. Okay, because Gungun has told me that, right? So, Gungun is very, very regular to class. I keep remembering. Gungun has been there from grade 8 itself. So, should not be that I'm too fast. This is the first time I'm hearing that. ठीक है? 3 marks for this as well, right? 3 marks for this. Awesome. Have you all taken a screenshot? Right? Have you all taken a screenshot? No, ma'am, it's fine. Okay, ठीक है. I have 20 more minutes, right? So, I can take some doubts also towards the end. No Vande Bharat. Okay, fine. Okay. Moving on to the next one. Many of you had this doubt, so I'm going to spend some time here, right? What are plastids? Name the different types of plastids which are found in a plant cell along with their functions, right? 3 mark question. This is also very highly possible for your, highly possible that it comes in the exam, right? So now, of course, give me 2 minutes, Swarit, I will answer your question, right? Those of you who have a doubt, plastids are double membranous cell organelles which are exclusively found only in plant cells, right? We do not find it in animal cells, right? So we see that we have chloroplast, chromoplast and leucoplast. Now chloroplast, right? Chloroplast is a type of plastid which has chlorophyll, right? What is the function? The function is it helps in the process of photosynthesis, right? So you just need to write what pigment is present and what is its function. Now you have chromoplast. Chromoplast here has various pigments like xanthophyll, right? So we have xanthophyll, carotene, different types of pigments are present, right? Anthocyanin, all of that. Where do we find chromoplast? We find it in flowers and we will find it in fruits, right? While where will I find chloroplast? I will find chloroplast in the leaves. Now the major function is to impart color, right? While on the other hand, leucoplast that is there is normally found in certain cells. They are non-pigmented. So like in potato and everything if you see, right? We normally find your leucoplast. And we see that they mainly help with storage of starch. We find it in protein, so on and so forth. So when you're writing it, you just need to mention what are plastids. You will get 1 mark or you will get half mark, whatever the bifurcation be, and 2 marks for elaborating the 3 types of plastid, right? What is exosmosis, Shivraj? Exosmosis is when there is movement of water molecules from a region of higher concentration to lower concentration across a semi-permeable membrane. But here the water will go from inside the cell to outside. It is exiting the cell through osmosis, which is why we call it as exosmosis. Okay? Shivraj, I hope you are clear. Next question is a very interesting question. It is a application competency based question for all of you, right? If a person takes a concentrated solution of salt, after some time, he starts vomiting. What is the phenomenon which is responsible for this? Imagine I drank on concentrated salt solution. What is going to happen to me? I'm going to vomit, right? Vomiting due to dehydration, theek hai, but you should tell me the process. 2 pointers must be mentioned here. Which are the 2 pointers? Very good. Excess concentrated salt solutions means hypertonic solution. Very good, Vidya. Body will shrink. Exosmosis takes place. Very good. Body will shrink or cell will shrink? You tell me that. There's a difference between saying my body is going to shrink versus cells in my intestine will get affected, right? There's a difference. Can we do Menti? I will keep this in mind. Maybe we'll do subject. See, I can't let go of subjective questions, let me tell you that. But I can add a Menti for the objective questions probably. Ma'am, what if we place a cell in pure water? In pure water, what will happen, which has no solute molecules, it's only water, water will enter from inside to outside. Endosmosis will take place because when you put a cell in pure water, which has no solute, our cell has solute, right? Which means relatively water concentration is less, so water will come inside, right? Yes, I know it will be damn you, right? So in this case, of course, if we drink such a solution, it is concentrated. That means that it is a hypertonic solution. And when we drink it, we see that exosmosis process will happen, and as a result, all the cells will shrink, right? And as all the cells will shrink, we see that as a result, we see that a lot of dehydration will happen, and due to the changes, we'll end up vomiting or throwing up. So 3 pointers, you will have to mention where this goes, right? We see what will happen once it goes inside our body, what is the process, and why we vomit, right? So if you write this, 3 marks you will get. Now, I am in the second last question, question number 14 and 15, right? Question number 14 is a case-based question, right? Now, in case, if you have not done case-based questions is when they will give a paragraph like this, okay? They will give you a paragraph and there will be 4 subparts, right? We see that there will be 4 subparts that will come and it will come for 4 marks. Now, there could be 4 subparts, there could be 2 subparts, but basically subparts are present, right? So that is the main thing that we're going to be focusing on, and we have a case-based question. Sana and Savijot, I know you came a little late to class, but it's okay. See, 5 p.m. is kind of fixed between 5 to 7 for class 9th and 7 to 9 for class 10th. But in case, right, in case if you, it's okay. If you're missing the live class, you can rewind and watch it. Don't worry. Put it in 2x, rewind and watch it. Easy peasy. Yes. Ho gaya bacha, Sherbanu. 2 more questions. Done. Session is almost done. So basically, we're talking about cells, right? We're talking about cells kept. They're just giving you a paragraph about cells. But now the question is a little tricky. I mean, actually, it's a very easy one. Identify the statement which are true for cells. 4 statements are given from which you have to identify which is the correct statement. Statement 1 says that some cell organelles are visible only with an electron microscope. Is this statement true? Yes. Second statement is cytoplasm is a jelly-like fluid which is present inside the cell. Is this statement true? Absolutely. It is a jelly-like viscous fluid. Now statement 3 says that cell organelles perform all the functions in the cell. Absolutely. This statement is also true, right? Now next one is statement 4 says that every cell has a membrane around it which separates the, so basically every cell membrane that is there separates the inside and the outside, right? So this statement is also true. This means what? All the 4 statements are true in the given set, right? Which is why correct answer is option D. It says C here, but it's option D, right? I know it is misprinted as C, not B. Which is why in this case, the correct answer is option D and you will get 1 mark, right? Array C ko D kar diya, it's okay. I know it got misprinted. It's fine, but we know it is D, right? We know it is D. Moving on to the next one. A suitable term for all the various components inside the cell, right, is called as what? Tissue, cell organelle, chromosome or gene, right? Shivaraj, the previous question basically had 4 statements from which you had to identify the correct statement. So all the 4 statements, you can go back and you can rewind it, pause and zoom in, you will see that they are all true. Tomorrow, class 9, the schedule is already out, the live schedule. Subscribe to the channel for notifications, right? But tomorrow, Arsh ma'am has class with all of you. Arsh ma'am ka class hai. She is taking some math chapter which I don't know the name of. Yes, she is taking linear equation in 2 variables. Very good. So in this case, the apt option that is there is option B, cell organelles. A suitable term for various components of the cell is not tissue. It cannot be chromosomes also. Chromosome is inside the nucleus. Neither is it genes, which is why answer is cell organelles, right? Okay. So that is 1 mark there. Now next one is what are cell organelles? Cell organelles are nothing but specialized tiny organ-like structures, right? So they are tiny organ-like structures that carry out important activities. So this right here is for 1 mark, right? The answer is already there, which is why I explained. Shivraj, I explained the previous question for you, right? Yes. 4th one. Name any 5 cell organelles. You guys only tell me. Name any 5 cell organelles. Very good, Albin. Golgi apparatus, lysosomes, right? Yes. What else is there? Golgi apparatus, lysosomes, ER, mitochondria. Yes, you need to write any 5, right? Golgi, lysosomes, ER, ribosome, chloroplast, mitochondria. You need to list any 5. You will get 1 mark for the same, right? Yes, very good. Now with this, students, if you think about it, you have got 4 out of 4 marks easily, right? So case-based questions and actually 5-mark questions are also very scoring questions, right? Your 3-mark are normally the tricky ones where you get give reason or you have elaborate, describe and all that. But normally, section D may your case-based, the case-based questions and 5-mark are normally going to be elaborated, right? Okay. Okay, I don't know, Siddharth, what that means, but I hope you are not going to be mean to me, right? That's all I'm asking. I'm a very kind person. I spread kindness. I want kindness in class also, right? That's all I say. Anyway, coming back, right? Question number, last question, 15th question for 5 marks. So here your 5-mark question has been split, right? 3 subparts are there. So it's been split as 1 plus 2 plus 2, right? 1 plus 2 plus 2. So now in this case, I can see that many of you here have got the answer, right? Ma'am, is ribosome an organelle? It is a cell organelle. Swarit, if you have it with you already, you can use that as a reference, right? You can use that as a reference. It's okay. So basically, the nuclear membrane, why does the nuclear membrane have pores, right? Yes, so we see that the nuclear membrane that is there, we see that they have certain pores in them that allows for the movement of substances, right? So we see that this right here, we see that nuclear pores are present which allows for movement of substances outside the nucleus, right? So mainly if you talk about it, we see that there are types of messenger RNA that goes out, I'm being specific, messenger RNA that goes out from the nucleus all the way outside, right? And that plays a very important role in protein synthesis. Yes? Okay. Now next up the question is differentiate between nucleus and nucleoid, right? So the next question is to differentiate between nucleus and nucleoid. So in this case you will get this for 2 marks. Basically they are asking you to differentiate between prokaryotic and eukaryotic, right? Easy peasy. So sweet, Neha. I'm so happy. I'm so happy that now assertion reason is not so scary for all of you, right? My aim is to make sure that questions become easy, right? So sweet. Let us know in the comments of this video also, very, very important, right? That everybody should see. See, I see it in the live class, but the whole team should see it that we are helping and making such a big difference in your life, right? So in the case of nucleus, we know that it is well defined and we know that a cell which has a well defined nucleus has membrane bound cell organelles, while a nucleoid region is such where there is no membrane bound structure and the genetic material is found concentrated in one particular part, right? So now of course that is one main point. Now give 2 functions of nucleus. What is the process of nucleus, or rather what is the function, Vandana? Function of nucleus is to act as a control center. So controls various activity and acts as the heredity unit, right? Information also it not only controls various functions that happens within the cell, but it also helps in passing down information from one generation to the other, right? So I hope now we are all clear. Yes? So when you're writing the answer, you will get 1 mark for elaborating this, 2 marks for writing difference between nucleus and nucleoid, 2 marks for writing this, and a total of 5 out of 5. So there you go, students. 2 hours of undedicated, I'm not undedicated, sorry. I can say 2 hours of unwavering and dedicated focus and making sure that you are paying attention in class has made you feel confident, right? Now can you tell me what is your confidence level out of 10, right? What is your confidence level? Now tomorrow if your teacher puts surprise test in class also for fundamental unit of life, what is going to be your confidence? That is what I want, right? And students, see, in case if you are feeling 8 or 7 or 6, right? Don't worry. Now I'll tell you what would have happened. In today's class, you would have realized that full fundamental unit chapter may be this one subtopic I have not understood properly. So rather than sitting and wasting your time, sitting and studying the whole chapter over and over, you have realized that, okay ma'am, I have not understood this one subtopic, or this one subtopic may I still have some confusion. So now you will be smart about planning which is that subtopic, right? So over our period of time, constant revision helps us identifying our pain points and focusing on them, and whatever you are most confident with, you will become better and better at it, right? So this is a homework question for all of you, which I want you to let me know in the comments of this video. What would happen if the plasma membrane ruptures or breaks down, right? You need to let me know in the comments of this video. I will be checking your answers, and I will be making it a point that whoever answers well, I will put their name in the community post also. Yes? So make it a point, you let me know in the comments. You gotta be there. And of course, as you all know, right? You know that BYJU'S 9th and 10th channel has got you covered. Exam Edge is going to help you out. So all you need to do is to hit that subscribe button on the channel and hit the notification. Don't forget to like this video. And if you've made it till the very end, that means I am super proud of all of you that you were there till the very end of this class. So thank you so much, students, for being such amazing students today, right? I am super duper proud of all of you. Any further doubts that you have, let me know in the comments of this video as well. I will see you all soon, but up until then, take care, lots of love, and bye bye.